guys, and welcome to the Mach7 podcast, episode number 32. I am your host, Andrew. Joining me this week is, nobody. My co-workers, my co-hosts. Co-host is probably a better word for them. Yeah, they decided to abandon me. They're like, oh, we're just gonna leave for spring break. We're not gonna help you do anything. Not true, they're all very helpful people. But I decided the show must go on. So, here we are. I'm just gonna turn my mic down just a little bit more. I feel like I'm yelling. I'm getting a little yelly, you know? I'm excited. So, shout out to Far Cry 4, because there's only one radio station in the cars in Far Cry 4, right? And there's this guy doing this, like, radio show. His name is Robbie Ray Rana. Triple R, as I like to call him. But he's super entertaining in these radio shows. And it's just him talking about, like, random crap. Like, he's complaining about honey badgers. And he's telling Ajay, the character you play as, to get a bidet. Which is, you know, was not expecting that. Caught me off guard a little bit. Still funny. So, you know, I thought, like, hey, this guy is doing some, you know, solo radio shows. I can do a solo radio show, right? Am I right, lads? Am I right? So, here I am. Trying to do the podcast by myself. It's not going to go well. If you're listening to this, that means it went, you know, okay. If it's terrible, I can just delete it. Which is probably going to happen. We'll see. We'll see. So, I want to talk about Far Cry 4 a little bit more, a little later on. But the first thing I want to do is talk about the games that are free, and in the Games for Gold program from Microsoft. So first up, Rayman Legends. Now, you know, if you've listened to the podcast before, you probably know I'm more of an RPG guy. You know, I'm more of a third-person action game like you know, Assassin's Creed and that kind of thing. I dabble in first-person shooters. Don't play them often. Well, once in a while. I mean, obviously, Far Cry 4 is first-person shooter, but obviously that has a lot of, you know, more of the open world and the RPG elements, as they like to call them. So I decided to try out Rayman Legends because, you know, it's a 2D side-scrolling platformer type game, you know, so reminiscent of the old Marios and other types of games like that. And I wasn't sure that I was gonna like it, but I'm actually falling in love with this game. It's actually a lot of fun to play because the maps are challenging, but not so challenging that they're entirely off-putting. You know what I mean? Like, it's just all about, you know, timing jumps and making sure, you know, you don't fall into the fire pit. Like, it's not that hard. You just gotta do it. It just has to happen. So I'm sitting here and I'm playing Rayman Legends, and, you know, I'm racking up a couple achievements. And I start realizing that, man, like, the first couple levels, easy to perfect. You have to collect a certain number of these. They're called lums, but they're basically just, you know, collectibles around the world. And then you have to collect 10 teensies, who are like hidden character things you have to find. And, you know, I'm going through the first couple levels, and it's like, this is super easy. You know, I can do this easily. Just 100% every single level the first time through. And then you get to levels like the Dungeon Dash, where you have to go through it very quickly, because there's a wall of fire trying to catch up with you and will murder you immediately. Going through these levels quickly, not as easy as, you know, just being able to take your time and explore the entire world as you see fit. So, I don't know, man. I'm probably going to finish it. I probably won't get 100% of the achievements because it's getting tough. It's definitely getting tough. One of my favorite parts is, so there's like, I don't know, 7, 8 worlds total, and each world probably has 10 or more maps in it. But like at the end of each world, the last map, it's a really interesting sort of take on the platformer formula that they have, because it's basically like a musical. That's the best way I can describe it. Like, it's music. There's music playing, which then, like, your actions then, like, coincide to the beat with the music. Like, they'll put an enemy in front of you, and once, you know, it's timed so that once you hit the enemy, then that coincides with, you know, like a snare drum or something. It's super cool. And super, like, I haven't seen something like that before. I mean, besides, I guess, like, Guitar Hero. I guess it's really more like that. It's more like a rhythm-based game. Just these final maps. But, like, executed way more in an interesting way than Guitar Hero ever could, just because of Guitar Hero's innate design. So, I don't know, man. Rayman Legends, it's a lot of fun. Came out in 2013, so it's a couple years old at this point. But yeah, definitely check that out if you are a Xbox Live Gold member, and you have an Xbox One. You need the Xbox One. It's important. The second game for the Xbox One is a game called iDarb, which stands for I Draw Red Box. I don't know why it's called that, because it's like a 2D sports game where you basically just have to grab this ball and you throw it into your opponent's goal and stuff. I haven't played it myself, and I don't actually intend on downloading it because I probably won't ever play it, because it seems like it'd be way more fun to do with friends. There's probably an online multiplayer, like matchmaking, where you can be mashed up with random people, but, I mean, do you really want to do that? Like, that doesn't seem like it'd be as much fun as playing with a group of people that you know. But I've seen a Let's Play of this game, and it seems like I said, it seems like it'd be really fun to play with other people. And, like, the big hook in that game is there's, like, a live tweet thing at the bottom. So, like, if you use the hashtag iDarb on Twitter, then it'll, like, show up in-game, like, on like, a bottom scrolly type thing. I don't know what to call that. So that seems super interesting. If you have friends, which I don't, then, check that out. If I had friends, okay, I wouldn't be recording a podcast by myself. Like a loser. You're a loser! That's me. That's when the guy says you're a loser, he's talking about me. I mean, what else am I doing with my life? Now, the game that's free for the Xbox 360 right now is Tomb Raider. And I don't mean the old 90s Tomb Raider, that sucks. The old ones are actually okay. But I mean the new Tomb Raider. The rebooted Tomb Raider. The one that's super good and everybody should play. If you don't play this new Tomb Raider, you are missing out. Now, maybe I'm biased, because Tomb Raider was the first Let's Play I ever did. Not counting Doritos Crash Course 2, because that was a travesty. Hello, Crash Course 2 from Doritos. And we should never talk about that again. Tomb Raider was the first full game that I Let's Played. Even though the first episode is broken. So, go check that out. Self-plug. But the new Tomb Raider's amazing. Okay? I feel like they really sort of distance themselves from the puzzle aspect that the old Tomb Raiders have. It's more of like an adventure game this time around. Especially since, like, the optional tombs that you can raid, it's seriously like one puzzle. It's like, get to this higher ledge. Oh, how do you do it? Raise up this lift thing. It's like, alright, well, that was hard. Man. Especially when it glitches, it's hard. Like, I'm not joking right now. The first time I did, like, the very first optional tomb, it glitched, and I couldn't get up to the upper ledge. Because the lift you're on is supposed to, like, you burn some stuff on it, and then it doesn't drop down when you jump on it. Yeah, when I played it, just decided to keep dropping down. It's like, well, thanks. That's awesome. Thanks a lot, game. You're useless. So, Tomb Raider's fun. Definitely check that out. I mean, that was probably my game of the year it came out. It was like that and BioShock Infinite both came out around the same time. It's super hard to decide which one I liked more. I think I ended up liking Tomb Raider more. It was less confusing. Like, BioShock Infinite's plot is so out there and it's so all over the place that I don't know what to do with. I don't know what to make of it. Like, what does any of that even mean? So those are the games free on Xbox Live Gold right now. Go check them out. Particularly Tomb Raider. If you like the third-person action-adventure games that focus on shooting people in the face, with the bow and arrow, no less, definitely go check that out. What else did I want to talk about in this podcast? Alright, so Far Cry 4. Dude, I've been playing the crap out of some Far Cry 4. And it's a game I couldn't bring myself to stop playing. Because it's so much fun to just ride up into one of those outposts on an elephant and just bash everybody. Like, you just charge into them and they go flying. I can't remember anything being quite as satisfying as that. Maybe throwing stormtroopers around in The Force Unleashed. That was definitely incredibly satisfying. The Force Unleashed itself, I'm not a big fan of what they tried to, like, this story they tried to tell. I'm like, I don't need this. Am I really to believe that this one character is responsible for the entire rebellion? I don't know. It's questionable. But throwing stormtroopers around was great. And here's what I want, okay? I'm a big fan of the Jedi Knight series. Particularly Jedi Outcast. Jedi Academy was good, and I definitely enjoyed it, but, I don't know, I felt like Jedi Outcast had a better story. So I want another Jedi Knight game but take the Force Unleashed's engine. Take those physics where you can just ragdoll a stormtrooper across a room, and then throw him out of an airlock, and, and then he just explodes. Also, the Force Unleashed 2, I think, is the first game to legitimately allow, like, decapitations of characters. Because as far as I remember, no other game has included that. And not for a lack of realism, because obviously, a lightsaber could easily cut someone's head off. But, and I think it's more about being a little more kid-friendly, rather than allowing total dismemberment in any Star Wars game. And to be fair, in a Jedi Knight series, particularly, again, Outcast and Academy, there are cheat codes that you can turn on that allow dismemberment. But again, since those aren't in the original game, I'm not really counting it, since again, you could only do that on PC, first of all, you couldn't even do it on the console versions. I just don't really think they count, you know what I'm saying? But back to Far Cry 4, okay? The achievements in Far Cry 4 are so easy that by the time I completed the game, I only have 2 achievements left, and they're both co-op achievements. Obviously, I don't know anyone else who has Far Cry 4, because, again, I don't have friends. I don't know people. I stay in my room, I record a podcast. That's my life. So Far Cry 4, so the achievements are super easy. I mean, probably the hardest one, there are 2 ones that I found a little bit tricky. The first being to kill 30 enemies with a mortar round. I don't remember what the achievement was actually called. But I found this hard because I didn't know what the mortar round was for the longest time. It wasn't until I got to the second half of the game that I was even like, oh, this is a mortar round. Okay, I understand that. I thought it was like a gun you could buy that you then had to shoot people with, and I don't know why that would be an achievement, because there aren't achievements for any other weapon that you buy. So I was kind of confused about that. And it turns out that there's in the outposts themselves, usually, that's where they are, there's a stand, an actual mortar cannon, just standing there, and you have to get on that and you have to shoot people with it. I found that tricky because obviously you're completely defenseless while you're using the mortar cannon. People can just come around the corner and shoot you in the face. So killing 30 enemies with that, I was like, alright, well, hopefully I do this before I finish the game. And I ended up being able to do it. I think probably the easiest way to do it is you're able to replay outposts attacks, so to unlock an outpost, you have to kill all the enemies in the outpost, and they can call for reinforcements, and it's best to really do it sneaky and not be detected and everything, but, screw that. So you can, replay those scenarios as many times as you want. So you could probably find an outpost that has a mortar cannon, let them call for reinforcements, murder everyone in the camp, and then hop on the mortar cannon and just obliterate the reinforcements. Because if you don't kill everyone in the camp before you get on the mortar cannon, they're going to shoot you in the face, and you'll probably die. That's the one thing about this game is I feel like you die a lot faster than in Far Cry 3. Theoretically, you have the same amount of health, I guess, but it seems like the enemies do way more damage. But to counteract that, you can also unlock a gun that just wins the game for you, essentially. If anybody's going to play Far Cry 4, the one tip I have for you is to unlock or activate all of the bell towers as soon as possible. Now, if you've played Far Cry 3, the bell towers serve the same purpose as the radio towers, where you go to them, you climb up the tower, there's a whole parkour sequence thing, and then when you activate them, it unveils an area of the map, it gets rid of the fog on the actual map that you can see, and it usually will award you with a gun too. A gun will become free at the store, so you can just equip it immediately instead of having to buy it. But when you unlock all of the bell towers, you get a gun called the Buzzsaw, and it's an LMG. It's like a World War II era LMG that you just carry around, and it's pretty good. I mean, it's decent. It might be the best gun in the game, I think. I mean, for an LMG, the reload rate, first of all, because the reload rate is always the biggest drawback to LMGs, right? They're always super powerful, have a high rate of fire, but take forever to reload. This one's reload rate is pretty small. It does not take long to reload this gun. So, and it's got probably 200 or 300 bullet magazines, so it's not like even you need to reload all that often. But this gun just tears through people. particularly heavies and the flame troopers, who are wearing like this heavy armor and are so difficult to take down otherwise. I mean, they die in probably, I don't know, 10 buzzsaw bullets. Like, it does not take long to kill those dudes with the buzzsaw. And it'll shoot through... It might be one of the only guns to actually shoot through the environment. Like, it can be difficult to take out an entire truck full of dudes with other guns. But this one, it'll just shred the entire car. And it will just murder everybody inside. And it's pretty incredible. And you can take down helicopters with it. It's really best to take down helicopters with explosives, like a grenade launcher or a rocket launcher. It's honestly easier. But if you happen to not have one of those on hand, the buzzsaw will do fine. Just try to aim for the pilot, and usually the whole thing will just explode, which is amazing. So shout out to the buzzsaw for being totally OP and totally broken. The other achievement I had a difficulty with was, what was it called? Misdirection, where you had to distract 15 enemies by throwing rocks, which again is another feature returning from Far Cry 3. But it was so weird. It was a really weird way to have the achievement, and I guess I just didn't really do it right. Because it says distract 15 enemies with rocks, which I thought meant, like, throw a rock and have them notice it. Like, to me, that's what that means. But it turns out you have to throw the rock, let the enemy investigate the noise that you made, but then not do anything to that guy. You have to wait for him to go back to his previous position. And then that counts as being as distracting him with a rock. So, I didn't really get that. I guess, I didn't do it properly throughout the entire game. I ended up looking up how to do it because it was one of the last achievements I needed. I was like, I don't know how I haven't gotten this yet. I could have sworn I threw rocks at 15 dudes and they investigated it. So I guess you're supposed to throw it and then sneak around them without doing anything to them, and then they would go back and then that would count. But I just didn't do that. I would distract them and then I would murder them. Maybe that says something about me. I don't know. I'm not very good at stealth games. Stealth in this game is really not that difficult, especially once you get the autocross, which is... It's like an automatic crossbow pistol thing, and it's pretty incredible. It's basically like if Arno's Phantom Blade from Assassin's Creed Unity was like a handheld pistol. It's like the same concept. Okay, but back to the misdirection achievement. What I ended up doing was replaying one of the first outposts, and then just trolling them with rocks, and just not attacking them at all. Any of the soldiers that were in the outpost. Just throwing rocks, letting them investigate, and then letting them go back to their little hideout. You can do theoretically, I think you can do the same soldier 15 times. It doesn't have to be 15 different enemies, so that was pretty easy to grind out. It honestly did not take that long. But I just didn't... I didn't know what it meant by distract 15 enemies, I guess, I was confused. Let's see, what else about Far Cry 4? I feel like there was something else. The multiplayer in Far Cry 4 is not fantastic. It actually works. You can actually get into games just fine. But I don't know. I really didn't enjoy it that much. Granted, I don't enjoy multiplayer. So, that's probably why. There's there's an achievement to play, or to finish a match in each of the game modes. So that's why I was playing multiplayer, to do that. And honestly, I was just I wasn't interested in it. I didn't want to do it. So for the most part, I was just sort of AFK. Not really helping out, which I'm sure my teammates absolutely loved. But each game of multiplayer has 2 rounds. One where you play the hunter type character, where you only have a bow and arrow, but you can use syringes and stuff. And then one as the Golden Path, where you have actual guns and it's a whole thing. I don't know. There wasn't any deathmatch either. It was all objective based, which I'm not a big fan of. I personally, if I'm gonna play multiplayer, I like deathmatch. I like a regular... I'm actually a bigger fan of team deathmatch, because I suck on my own and I need people to help me at all times. But yeah, so I don't know. The multiplayer really didn't grab me that much. I feel like it's a similar concept to what Tomb Raider did with their multiplayer, where you have one group of soldiers with higher firepower, but then the other team is better at stealth. That's really the divide that goes on there. But I don't know. I just feel like it just wasn't fun. So don't play Far Cry 4 for the multiplayer, but play for the single player, because it's great. I have not tried any of the co-op yet, which, the co-op's not really anything separate. It's just something else that you are able to do. So if anybody listening to this podcast has Far Cry 4 for the Xbox One, and wants to help me get those 2 co-op achievements, I would be more than happy to do that with you. I'm just gonna pander to the audience, and hopefully one of them will speak up, because nobody comments on these videos, right? I mean, why would they? That's ridiculous. Silliness. Pure silliness. Alright. So that's enough about Far Cry 4. Awesome game. Would definitely recommend it. If you like the first-person shooter RPG open world combination, go play it. It's a fun game. Believe me. Just trust me on this one, alright? It's a fun game. So what else did I want to talk about? I want to talk about Lazer Team for a second, okay? So the Lazer Team trailer was released, a couple weeks ago, and it's looking pretty decent.
Is that it?
No, it's another spaceship that fell out of the sky, dumbass.
For a film that has a budget of about $2.5 million, it's looking pretty decent. Knowing this, I decided to look up what the budget of other, comparable sci-fi movies are, just because I wanted a comparison. And so I looked up, Avatar, which obviously had one of the highest budgets in, recent memory. And that was $211 million? Something along those lines. I looked up the new Star Wars movie, which is going to be between $175 and $200 million. The original release of A New Hope, episode 4 of Star Wars, was $11 million. So adjust that for inflation, and that's worth even more now. And so Lazer Team's operating with $2.5 million. It's definitely not a high budget film. $2.5 million is it's a crap load of money, right? And I'm so happy that the community was able to fund even that much money. I think that's awesome. Rooster Teeth community is great when it comes to raising money, because they will just throw money at literally anything. Here's the problem I'm going to have with this, I feel like, though, is that people are going to criticize the ever-loving crap out of this movie, and it's going to annoy me so much. It seems like a lot of people, especially in the Rooster Teeth community, just don't allow themselves to be entertained by anything. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just that, negative criticisms are how they express themselves, or, I don't know what it is. But they just don't want to be entertained. Or it's like they do want to be entertained, but nothing is ever going to scratch that itch for them. And I feel sorry for those people. Alright? Anything that has to just be super serious and can't ever be, silly or ridiculous, that they can't enjoy, that side of entertainment. I feel sorry for those people. I wish them luck in life, because you have to learn to laugh about something. Me personally, I laugh at myself all the time. Anytime you hear me talk about my utter failures with women, or, talk about my crippling depression, that's just me laughing at myself. I don't actually believe that I'm a total failure with women. I am, but it's not, preventing me from living my life, okay? I think it's funny. I think the fact that my biggest success on YouTube is a music video for somebody else's work, I think that's funny. That I'm not entertaining enough to make people like my stuff. Now I'm just venting. I'm not even talking about Lazer Team anymore. Lazer Team's looking good. The special effects look cool. The acting is actually impressive, considering so many of the people in that show are not professional actors. I mean, I guess technically Michael is a professional voice actor, since he's now in Fairy Tail, and I think he's got a role in another one coming up. I don't remember what it is. But they're not professional on-screen actors. But they do a really good job based on the trailer. And they do have some, legitimate actors in that movie. Don't get me wrong. But I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be an entertaining show. We'll see how many, Rooster Teeth references are in it. One of the biggest problems with the X-Rain Vav animated series that they made was that the entire thing was based on, Achievement Hunter references. I mean, the creation of X-Ray and Vav was an Achievement Hunter joke. Mad King Ryan and the Core Pirate, Achievement Hunter stuff, So if you don't really... I'm kind of hoping that Lazer Team sort of shies away from that. Because 10 Little Roosters was the same way, where they're playing caricatures of themselves in 10 Little Roosters, essentially. And sort of how the community even perceives those people. Chris was in his Hobbit outfit from A Walk into Mordor. Well, I don't remember what it was called. The Simple Walk? whatever. You know, like, that became his character because that became his, like, on-screen persona. So I'm looking forward to Lazer Team. I hope it turns out really well. One thing people were complaining about in Lazer Team is the fact that one of the artifacts they find looks just like the shield that the jackals use. And people were like, they were going to start witch hunts over this. They're like, oh no, Rooster Teeth is using the jackal shield. Oh, they're so unoriginal and uncreative. And that's the noise I imagine everybody on the Rooster Teeth subreddit makes. It blows my mind. It's like, who cares? What difference does it make if it's a jackal shield or if it looks like Captain America's shield? Like, why does that matter? Just enjoy the movie. So I'm looking forward to that releases. I think that's coming out in spring, hopefully. Maybe in summer. It's definitely coming out soon. I know like Bernie and Michael recently like tweeted pictures about showing them doing like reshoots and like pickup shoots for Lazer Team. So hopefully that's coming out soon. I'm looking forward to it. I'm gonna enjoy it. I can't imagine anything that Rooster Teeth puts out be so terrible that I won't find some enjoyment out of it. Because I like their content. They make good content. So that's enough about Lazer Team. I think I've rambled on about that long enough. And about myself. All I'm doing is talking to myself here. What do you want from me? I'm the best podcast of all time. Can't wait for this to hit iTunes. 1,000 views. Immediately. Like, day one. 1,000 views. So what else has been going on? Dude, I can't believe everybody left for spring break. Everybody but one person. Shout out to Abby. Abby's gonna stay here in the freezing cold. And we're gonna make some machinima. Like this group should. Because that's what we're here for, is machinima. We got inner monologues out. It's going well. Can't wait to see what the second script looks like. Travis has not sent it to me, despite what he said in the last podcast. Because he's a noobatron. But it's going to be good. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to doing more editing, too. Dude, I got like nothing else to talk about. I want to introduce a new segment to this show. I don't know how long this is going to take. I want to introduce a new segment. And it's a segment where we make a top 5 list. And we just talk about, because it'll give us something to talk about. It'll let the group collectively, I'm going to start it now when nobody else is here so they can't argue with me. But collectively, we'll be able to argue about our top 5 lists. And it could just be like a different topic. It won't even be every week. You know, some weeks, you know, maybe we'll do a top 6 list. Ooh, you know, change it up. Ooh, coming at you, throwing shapes. You never know. You never know what's going to happen. It's crazy. I want to make a top 5 list, okay?
Shut up, dude. We're making top 5 lists.
Because this is something I want to talk about. I want to talk about my top 5 favorite protagonists in video games, okay? Now, bear with me here. I don't know why. I was like, I couldn't sleep one night, and I came up with this idea to make like a top 5 video. Mainly just to work on like video editing. Just to keep up. You know, I gotta keep practicing. Especially since I sent my resume to Rooster Teeth last week. You know, I feel like I need to keep making stuff. I gotta show the world that I can be a good video editor. It's not even that much editing, to be honest. The top 5 video, you just like take gameplay footage. It's not that hard. I mean, let's face it, it's not that hard. All right, my top 5 protagonists. I've already written this out because I'm a loser and I don't want to go like off script. Except for the final 2, which I decided to not write up because, you know, I wanted to record the podcast. And I didn't have time to write it up. I had time. I am here alone in my house for the next week. I have time. It's ridiculous how much time I have to do this. But I'm lazy and I don't want to do it. That's why I'm recording this podcast on the previous Saturday. Not on the next Sunday, next Thursday, like when it's going to come out. Because I'm bored. I need to do something. All right, top 5 favorite protagonists. Now, my first one on this list is going to be a little bit unconventional, because I think it's a character from a game where people don't really think about the characters quite as much. And that is Captain Martin Walker from Spec Ops The Line. People lost their minds over Spec Ops The Line, because the demo for this game was so awful, because it was really just the first level of the game, which intentionally sets it up to be such a generic third-person war simulator that people were like, this game's gonna be terrible. And then the full game comes out, and people lose their minds because it's one of the greatest games to ever be released. And I give a lot of credit to that to the characters, because in this game, you watch Captain Walker's slow descent into total madness, because he's He's murdering people. He doesn't know what's going on anymore. He's losing his mind. And the game makes sure that you know that it's all your fault. It's the player's fault that Walker loses his mind. And it's not like you have a choice. You have to do this to continue playing the game. But that was an exhilarating experience. I have not seen something like Captain Walker's, development in any other game. Before or since. I have not seen it. Maybe I haven't been looking hard enough. Maybe that's my fault. I don't know. This game is, like I said, people talk about the actual storytelling rather than the characters. But I think the characters are important. I feel like the storytelling wouldn't be as good without the physical representation that the characters give you. You do things in this game as Walker that no human should have to do. It's crazy. You're forced to murder people, innocents, usually. Innocent people, and U.S. military. You think that the U.S. military has turned on you. It's insane the kind of stuff you have to do. And I love the portrayal. I love that Walker is not really a good person in this game. The fact that he pretty much comes off as a maniac is incredible to me. And I love that portrayal. And it's easy to see why he would go crazy. If you're watching the YouTube video right now, because this will be on iTunes as well. If you're watching the YouTube video, just take a look at this image. And just remember that you, as the player, you did this. You're a monster. Alright? Just keep that in mind. Go play Spec Ops: The Line. It's a great game. One of the best shooters of 2012. I don't remember what other games came out in 2012. Was it Halo 4? I think Halo 4 came out in 2012. Not as good as Spec Ops: The Line, in my opinion. It was good, don't get me wrong. I like Halo 4. Spec Ops: The Line just blew me away. Number 4. Sergeant Cortez from Timesplitters. Again, a little unconventional. People don't really think about Timesplitters. A lot of people have never even heard of Timesplitters. Awesome shooter. I don't know why more people haven't played this. It's an older game, released on, I think PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. So it's a couple generations ago. Why is there no Timesplitters 4? This blows my mind. There's 3 of them. But Cortez makes this list at number 4 because he's the greatest badass in the universe. Some games have heroes where they're like these roided up meatheads, right? And they're really powerful. And they can just bust through walls just by looking at them. Some heroes will crack jokes, while they're taking down the bad guy. And they're really charming and interesting. Cortez is the total package. He's got everything. It's a crime that Cortez was barely in Timesplitters game until Future Perfect. He was in Timesplitters 2. He was actually the main character of Timesplitters 2. But in each level of Timesplitters 2, you became a different character. It was really weird. I don't know how that works. It doesn't make any sense. They never explain it. Why would they explain it? They don't need to explain it. Future Perfect, you play as Cortez the whole way through. And he is incredible. He is the best, okay? He's the best at what he does, and what he does is awesome. It's not even not very nice. I took Wolverine's quote, and then I sort of morphed it into something greater, okay? I think Timesplitters 4 doesn't exist because Crytek, who bought Free Radical, who made Timesplitters series originally, Crytek thinks that the world isn't ready for more of everything that Cortez has to offer. He's fantastic. He's an expert with every type of weapon. Just think about this, right? He's a time traveler. He'll go back to, 1890, right? And he'll understand how all of those weapons work. When you're from the future, what are the chances you'll know how a weapon from 1890 works? Why would you know that? That's not something an ordinary person knows. Cortez is an expert with every weapon from the past, present, and the future. Even farther future from where he's from. He'll go even farther, and he'll still know how those weapons work. That doesn't make sense. Logically, you could not possibly do that. Cortez does it, because he's awesome. Dude will come across different versions of himself from a time warp. He'll go through a time warp, and then he'll, look down, and then it's he's there going through the door to go up to where the time warp is. He's totally cool with that. He doesn't care. He's like, oh, what's up, other me? Dude, shoot down that helicopter for me, will you? I'd be like, alright. Keep these dudes off my back. I'll shoot down the helicopter. They'll have the coolest conversations with himself. But it's not like this with myself, where it's only me talking. It's him talking, but himself is also going to reply. Because, it's a different version of himself from a different point of time. The ladies, okay? Chicks love Cortez. Because of his subtle approach to romance.
You go first.
Okay.
He is so good at romance that, I mean, women will kill to be with him. That's how good he is. And on top of all of that, his catchphrase is the coolest thing that anybody has said.
Yeah, it's time to split.
Right. Whatever.
It's time to... I gotta go. Time to split.
Ouch! That's not cool, man.
Ken, it's time to...
Just do the thing.
Bruce Willis in Die Hard has yippee-ki-yay, right? That's not as cool as Cortez's catchphrase. That's number 2. Yippee-ki-yay, I'll give number 2 to yippee-ki-yay, because I like Die Hard. I like John McClane. Even older John McClane, where, you know, he's like 60 years old and probably shouldn't be, you know, taking down helicopters with cars, but he does it anyway because he's John McClane. Cortez is awesome. More people need to play Timesplitters as well. We need to get a Timesplitters 4. They're working on a game called Timesplitters Rewind, where it's like a fan development. Crytek is like, yeah, we're not going to make Timesplitters 4 because we think that the people don't want it. So they're like, here, fans, have all the assets from the previous 3 games and just remake them if you want. And put that crap on PC. And the fans are like, alright, we'll do that. Not even joking, like that's happening. Number 3, the prince from Prince of Persia and the Sands of Time. Specifically the Sands of Time prince. Because the other princes are awful. Except for the Forgotten Sands. The Forgotten Sands was a game that was released alongside the Sands of Time movie. So you would assume it's going to be awful, but since it doesn't follow the movie at all, it's a completely separate plot. It's actually kind of okay. It's actually pretty good. I enjoyed the Forgotten Sands. That prince and the Sands of Time prince are more closely related than that prince and the Warrior Within prince. They're the same character. All 3 of those are the same character, but the Warrior Within prince has got something wrong in his head. They turned him into this, like, gothic emo... It makes me mad even thinking about it. I rage quit from the Warrior Within so many times simply because the soundtrack was so obnoxious that when I failed, like if I died in that game, I got so upset. I don't even know why. It's not that big of a deal, it's just a game. But it made me so angry. The game did that. It wasn't even that the game was that hard. I mean, you know, some of the puzzles and challenges were a bit tricky, but I wouldn't describe the game as being difficult. And I mean, you know, you're gonna die in Prince of Persia games. Like, it's inevitable. You know, buzzsaws are gonna come out of the wall, and you're not gonna know why they're there. And they're just gonna hit you and be like, alright, well, I guess that's the end of the game. Time to go home. But the Prince and Sands of Time was fantastic. And I think it's because he actually behaves like a rational individual. You know, these sand creatures take over this place that they're already invading. And he's just like, alright, I'm gonna murder these dudes. I'm gonna save my father. I'm gonna save this kingdom. But honestly, there's nothing special about this guy. You know, he doesn't have superpowers. He's not like a chosen one who's, you know, the only one in existence who's gonna be able to end this tragedy. I'm looking at you, Skyrim. Dovahkiin? That's bullcrap. What a cop-out. Dovahkiin. I like Skyrim, and I think the plot of Skyrim where the Dovahkiin is the only person who's going to be able to defeat Alduin, it's like, why? Don't put him on a pedestal. It makes him less interesting. The Prince from Sands of Time is not on a pedestal. He's a regular person. Now, granted, he does find a magical time-bending dagger. But hey, everybody gets lucky. I'm not denying that, alright? But it's not like a superpower. If he loses the dagger, he loses that ability. Which he does lose the dagger. Of course he does. That's when the challenge of the game really ramps up, when you lose the dagger. And you're like, oh, I can't go back in time anymore. Well, I guess I actually have to be careful. Plus, think about this, right? Dude has to be a genius. I mean, how can... he picks up the dagger, a boulder almost falls on his head, he immediately reverses time. He figures that out within the span of probably 10 seconds. He figures out how to use this dagger. What are the chances of that? You know how difficult it would be to figure out how a magical time-bending dagger works? If somebody gave me a dagger and is like, here, this dagger reverses time, go ahead and use it. I don't know, I mean, I don't know if there's like a button on it. The Sands of Time was released a long time ago, and it can be hard to, make out what the model actually looks like. I don't know if there's like a button on it that activates. There must be several buttons, because not only can you reverse time with it, but you can slow down time. You can do a bunch of crazy stuff with it. It's like, well, how does he figure out how that works? Nobody tells him how it works. He just figures it out. Dude is smart. He's a smart dude. And how quickly does his character development take place? Within the span of a couple hours, he goes from resenting Farah's existence to wanting to marry her. Farah is one of his enemies. She's like the daughter or a peasant or something from the city he's invading. He and his army. Well, his father's army. But, I mean, it's his army. Let's face it. He totally owns it. He might as well be the general. I mean, he's out there. He's on the front lines. He's the one actually getting work done. That's impressive. He wants to marry his enemy after a couple hours. He's a nice dude. He's like, I'm going to forgive you for all of your transgressions against my people. No, my people is not racist. Shut up. Number 2 is Ezio Auditore da Falafla. Whatever Yusuf says. I don't remember.
Ezio Auditore de la la la.
I like Ezio. This is the part where I go off the script because I haven't actually written any of this down, so this ought to be fun. I like Ezio. It probably has something to do with the fact that we follow Ezio's life from the second he was born to the second he dies in Embers. I mean, there's some gaps. I'm not going to say that there aren't gaps. There's a few gaps. But I mean, you follow him for pretty much the majority of his adult life. I mean, I think he's 17 in Assassin's Creed 2 in the very beginning. I don't remember. The thing about Ezio is, I mean, he charms pretty much every woman he comes across, right?
May I come in?
Fine, but only for a minute.
A minute is all I need.
Indeed.
Well, wait, that came out wrong.
Like, he's my role model. I try to be Ezio. I fail. I very clearly fail. But I try to be him. I try to be as suave. He's a very suave character, isn't he? And he's a good fighter. He picks up fighting instantly. He's like, oh, counterattack? I can do that. Murder. He murders a lot of dudes. Oh, a gun? Okay. Never seen this before in my life. Sure, I'll use it. Thanks, Leonardo. Da Vinci, not DiCaprio. That'd be silly. Shout out to Titanic. Ezio's cool. He's a cool dude. And he kind of has one of the more generic plots of Assassin's Creed. I mean, he sort of starts the whole revenge plot in Assassin's Creed, which almost every single character has followed. Altair didn't have it. Altair had a redemption plot, where he's trying to prove how good of an assassin he is throughout the entire game. And then he proves it. And then Al-Mualim's like, oh, Vapalavidin, spoilers for the end of Assassin's Creed 1. And then Ezio comes along and his whole family's murdered. And he's like, well, alright. I'm gonna join the Assassin's Brotherhood just to get back at these people. And then he does. And then he murders everybody. But then you think about, like, so it's definitely a revenge plot in Assassin's Creed 2. It's another revenge plot in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. It's really sort of the same revenge plot, but then they add on the fact that the villa was destroyed. And Uncle Mario was murdered. So they add that on, and then suddenly, it's like a double revenge plot. Crazy. It's crazy. But he really starts getting into the Brotherhood at that point. I mean, he becomes, like the Grand Master of the Assassins at that point in Brotherhood. So I feel like suddenly the revenge plot sort of almost takes a backseat to the fact that, oh, I need to rebuild these assassins. Because there aren't nearly enough of us anymore. And then in Revelations, I don't even know what to call Revelations. Like, it's a search for knowledge plot. And I don't even know if that's a real thing. But Ezio goes out, he's looking for knowledge from Altair, and then he finds it. And that's the end of the game. Revelations was super important, and it was like the shortest Assassin's Creed game to date. Why is that? That doesn't make sense. Also, old Ezio, I like that the one game that gives you the hook blade in order to help you move around. This is the one game with super old Ezio who probably shouldn't be able to move around as well as he does. Like, that makes sense to me. And the fact, I wish that the hook blade was in other games too, because that was actually fun to use. It was like the best mechanic in Assassin's Creed Revelations. Dude, Revelations, I did not like Revelations that much. Because Revelations, like, the animations for the counter kills took so long to execute. And again, and it makes sense, because Ezio's super old, you know, he can't, like, you know, he doesn't move around as fast as he used to. But he still does in the game, because you don't want to actually be playing an old man, because that would be boring. But the animations take forever, and I did not like that. Also, why does Desmond look like Adam Sandler? Why? Why not just make him look like regular Desmond? And then he changes again in Assassin's Creed 3. Why? Also, Assassin's Creed 3 had a revenge plot too. It was like, oh, you're gonna, you know, burn my village down? Where's Charles Lee? Rrr. It's just weird. I don't know. Unity had a revenge plot too. It was like, oh, you're gonna kill this chick's, my adoptive father, who's also this chick's father who I'm in love with? It's a weird plot, dude. I mean, you gotta admit. It was pretty bizarre. It's like marrying your stepsister. Like, it's so weird. So shout out to Assassin's Creed. Ezio, number 2 favorite protagonist. Number 1. Now, I was gonna put John Marston in this list somewhere. I was actually gonna split number 1 between John Marston and my pick, Geralt of Rivia. Because I felt like their characters are actually very similar. I don't know why that is. I mean, they're definitely distinguishable. It's not like they're interchangeable or anything. But they sort of have the same mentality and sort of the same motivations in a lot of cases. So I was going to split number 1, but then I was like, at that point, why not just make a top 6 list? And nobody makes top 6 lists. That's stupid. We're making a top 5 list.
Shut up, dude. We're making top 5 lists.
So I decided to just not have John Marston at all. And just mention that he's very similar to Geralt of Rivia. I really like John Marston too. Plus, the ending of his story is fantastic. I picked Geralt of Rivia ahead of him, mainly because I like The Witcher more. I talk about The Witcher constantly on this podcast. Like, all the time. I never stop. It's just like, every episode should just be called Witchercast. I'm going to call this episode Witchercast. I'm actually going to call it SoloCast, but, I mean, don't tell me what to do. So Geralt of Rivia is awesome, because he's not really the best character. He doesn't, and by best I mean, like, the best good guy. Because he isn't just helping people just for the sake of helping people. He's not really righteous in any way. But he's not quite an anti-hero either. He's not just helping the good guys in order to screw over the good guys later. Like, the quintessential anti-hero for me is Vegeta, right? The only reason he helps Goku fight against Frieza, against the androids, against Cell, against Majin Buu, is because he wants to fight and defeat Goku later on. He doesn't want these other bad guys to kill Goku before he himself has a chance to kill Goku. That's his whole motivation. That's like the definition of an anti-hero. Kaiba's the same way from Yu-Gi-Oh! The only reason he's fighting against Pegasus is because Kaiba wants to defeat Yugi himself. Maybe that's not the only reason. But that's a pretty... I mean, I think that's heavily implied. That Kaiba is very much an anti-hero. It's always someone who's evil and then turns good later. Except for Piccolo. Now that I think about it, Piccolo was evil in Dragon Ball, and then turned good for Dragon Ball Z. But his motivations aren't the same as Vegeta, where he wants to, you know, fight Goku later. It's more like he wants to atone for his sins, which is interesting. So he's not quite an anti-hero either. Geralt of Rivia, back to The Witcher. Let me just go off on a complete tangent about Dragon Ball. Shout out to Dragon Ball Xenoverse, very good game. Would definitely recommend to fans of Dragon Ball. Thought I wasn't gonna like it, turned out to be awesome. It's like an RPG. It's like a legitimate RPG, but with Dragon Balls instead. So I like Geralt of Rivia. His motivations lie mainly in money.
This ought to be easy enough to resolve. Look inside the caves.
But they're crawling with all sorts of filth.
I'll do it, but you'll pay me. Wait for me at the harbor.
Because that's his profession is to help people. The reason, he's a professional monster slayer. The reason he helps people is because he expects to get paid at the end of it. Sometimes up front, too, but, you know, it depends on the job. He isn't just going to hang out with King Foltest just because he thinks that protecting King Foltest is a good idea. I mean, he hangs out with King Foltest because, well, King Foltest asked him as a favor. But then the only reason he asked him as a favor is because he protected him from an assassin. Because Foltest has paid Geralt in the past. He paid him for his help with Ada. I like Geralt. Geralt's a cool dude. I'm currently reading the Witcher books, which give even more insight to Geralt. Is The Witcher one of the only series that spawned from books? Because the Witcher books came first. Like, they're the source material. That The Witcher 1, 2, and then, 3 in May, they build upon that. I'm pretty sure the books are all come before the games. I'm not exactly sure. In fact, what I find interesting is that the first chapter of the first book is the opening cutscene of The Witcher 1. Like, I read it, and then I decided I wanted to go back and play The Witcher 1. It's, like, shot for shot. The description that they have in the book is almost exactly portrayed in that first cutscene, which is awesome. I like how faithful that is. But then the game itself is after the book, so they don't have to be faithful to anything. They sort of create their own story based in the universe with the character, and then, but it's afterwards. That's why he already knows Dandelion and Zoltan in The Witcher 1. You don't meet them in that game, because I'm assuming you meet them in the book. I haven't gotten to that part yet. You might already know them in the book, for all I know. I like Geralt. Geralt's cool. I'm just going to keep saying that over and over, and that's my argument, because I didn't write this down. I didn't write out any kind of, how I want this to go. So shout out to Geralt. That's my top 5 list. Top 5 protagonists. And some other stuff, too. But that's my list. I think we should do this. I think each week, or maybe every other week, something, I don't know. I haven't thought this through at all. I need to, tell the other members what the next top 5 list is going to be on the episode, so that they can come up with their own lists and have their reasons. If we have 4 people on, though, going through 20 things is going to take a while. We might cut it down to, a top 3 list. I don't know. They probably think that's a stupid idea. I'm sorry, I like talking about video games. That's just me personally. I think video games are more interesting than, politics or other crap that nobody cares about. That's just me personally. How long have we been going? Probably almost an hour. Oh, perfect. Dude, that worked out perfectly. I'm amazing. It's going to actually be a lot shorter because I'm cutting out a ton of pauses where I'm thinking about what I'm going to say. Because I know that I can. Because I'm editing this. I can do what I want. You don't tell me what to do. I wish people would tell me what to do. I follow directions so much better than coming up with ideas on my own. Though this is my own idea. I'm not following any direction here. Screw you, Mach7. I do what I want. I'll put out my own podcast. You guys are going to leave for spring break. I do work here, okay? Who else does work? Trav is going to go write stuff. Psh. Visiting Frail right now. Dude, so shout out to Frail. I haven't talked to him in a while. He was on an episode of the podcast. Cool dude. Seemed to know what he was talking about. Don't know what he's been up to. Apparently making little people, which I don't know what that's like. I can't empathize with that. What am I supposed to do? Alright, I'm going to wrap this up. I hope you enjoyed me rambling on about whatever it is I ramble on about. I'm sure it was super entertaining. Let me know. Here's what I need, right? I need to know if a top 5 series of videos would be more interesting than putting them in the podcast. Because that's what I was going to do originally. But then I decided that was a lot of work, and I didn't have a lot of content for the podcast as it was. Because I knew I was going to do this. That same night I was thinking about, making a top 5 list, I was like, I should record my own podcast. Robbie Ray Rana and Far Cry 4 does it, why can't I do it? I could do it. I'm entertaining. I'm not entertaining. I don't know why I thought this was a good idea. But I did. I think it actually turned out well, so screw you. Come at me. I need to know if it would be more interesting as a separate video series. I still want to do it. I'm still going to do some, fancy video editing. So if you're listening to this on iTunes, search the Mach7 Animation YouTube channel. Watch the top 5 series, or the top 5 section on YouTube. Because it'll be interesting. I'm actually going to do some work, some production. I got to make it look nice. I got to have some sort of hook to this. Because me talking, not enough of a hook. I don't even like talking to myself. Why am I doing this? I don't know. I've seen other people do it, and I'm like, I can do that. Easy. Super easy. And then I do it, and I'm like, oh, it's not nearly as interesting as I thought it would be. Oh well, that's fine. Better than having no video this week, right? I gotta have something to do. I'm here alone the entire week. I gotta keep myself busy. And I will. I got a lot of video games to play. I gotta record a lot of stuff for this one video. Which is fine. I don't mind. I'm gonna be playing video games anyway. I might as well record it. Might as well make some work out of it. So thank you for listening to this Mach7 podcast. If you made it all the way to the end, I applaud you. I don't know how you did it. That doesn't make sense to me. Why you would watch all the way to the end. Thank you for listening. Stick tuned next week. We'll have the regular cast. Everything will be great. Abby won't be there because she'll be on spring break. But that's fine. Maybe Chris will be there. We'll have a 3-man podcast. It'll be fantastic. Just like a couple weeks ago where we didn't release it because it was awful. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want me to do more solo podcasts, let me know. I probably won't do it, but you never know. I'm not going to be able to do it when there are people in my house. Right? Like, I get nervous that they're listening to me or that I'm bothering them. Nobody's in the house right now. I can be fine. I can yell as loud as I want. I'm not going to because I hate the way I sound when I yell. I did some yelling for some voice recording before. Even when I was recording for Jack, I had to yell a few times. And it just sounds awful. I don't do it well. I don't know why that is. I think it's just because I'm too chill of a person to yell. I gotta wrap this up. I just keep talking. I can't stop. It's too much fun. Thank you for listening to this Mach7 podcast. Stick tuned next week. We'll have more videos. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. Check out our Facebook. Check out our website. If you're listening to this on YouTube, we're on iTunes. If you're listening to this on iTunes, we're on YouTube. So go check that out. Thank you for listening. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.